the government agencies, etc. They're working on it. If we can inspire them as well. I just like to kind of end this discussion on a positive note. That see, at the end of the day, those aspiring musicians, writers who are here or who are watching this, uh, we we have come a distance. Uh, it hasn't been easy. I'm sure for Aatish, for you as well. There has to be a history behind all of us to come to some amount of success, and there's a lot of analysis. There's a lot of talent. There's a lot of craving. There's so much that goes on, but for the young person who's aspiring to be a professional writer or a musician or a practitioner of the arts, uh, there is hope, and I think it's better in many ways today. At least, especially with the net opening up the way it has, you can actually. I mean, we couldn't imagine in the early days in the '80s when we started out that what. How can I get somebody to hear my music? Can I to get a record deal was like an impossibility. ये तो होने वाला नहीं है, let's find an uncle to sponsor or something, but it doesn't. So it took ages to come to that point. But today you can actually create a piece of music, put it up on YouTube, and you can promote it, and there are a few thousand people who watch it, and that's a hugely positive thing. Out of curiosity, Atish, what is the equivalent of this in the writing scenario?
You mean
Is there a way to put your
I don't.
work out there?
I think self-publishing is still. You need the publisher as an arbiter. He's still. I think that publishing is going to change. There'll be much more ebooks, which I think fundamentally are a good thing. But self-publishing is still. I mean, I don't know if it's really something that's going to become like, everyone can't have his book that they just throw out into the ether, and it like publishing has. I mean, nobody loads publishers more than writers, but they've really they do curate talent. They do present a book in a certain way, and a public responds, critics respond. It matters, the infrastructure of writing. What I was gonna say was this business of you're right. I think that the India I grew up in, if I wanted to be a writer the kind I'm now, it would be, unless I had some kind of foreign deal, it would have been unthinkable. I do have a foreign deal, but the fact is that it's possible to make a living as a writer. I know 24 writers who live and work in India and live by their writing, which is something new and something to be applauded. I guess that I'm still very curious about is, I wonder whether it would be like if we were I wonder whether this fundamental change, when it occurs, will occur in schools, whether actually a kind of public school convent education would finally be dismantled or changed significantly, so that, because India is also the country where traditionally it's more intact than any place.
Yeah.
You just have to step down the road, and there are people steeped in culture. So the fact that India can't draw sustenance from Bharat, and that Bharat is left out in the cold. I wonder where, probably in the school it would occur, probably a change of attitude among English-speaking India. I mean, that for me, that's where money and power resides. And
well, thank you so much, Atish and Shubhaji. We would now like to throw this into the audience, and you can come up with any questions you would like to ask. Do we have a microphone which can be circulated around?
Yeah, I think
Is there one there? Ah, there is. So any questions anybody would like to ask, please raise your hand. Yes, the lady there, the third row.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to ask a question that how much the reality shows, I mean, how much it is doing to promote music and all everything. What is your opinion about the reality shows that now are going on?
Shubhaji, you'd like to take that?
Music or the dance? Everything.
Well, I think it reinforces the fact that there are very, very talented youngsters, but I don't know how much I can say that the winners of those shows, how much importance and how much thought is given to their artistic development. Unfortunately, they win. They're sort of there for the length of the show, and after that they also find some kind of employment. But I think the very fact that they have to sing songs of a particular nature, and that they can't really sing a wide variety of music. I think that in itself is forcing them into a particular kind of music, making a particular kind of music, and certainly I don't think very much effort is put into letting them blossom as
Yes,
independent
absolutely.
voices in music. So I'm afraid they're
They're actually not coming up after a certain length of time.
exactly.
And then another thing is that the commercialization of music, and this is one thing I think. And another thing about
Okay, can we
literature.
actually take another question, one question each person, because there are many, I'm sure, who'd like to ask.
Hello.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. You know what Shubhaji and all of you all were discussing is the curriculum in schools, which need to change, because we've learned alto, soprano, descants, and all the time we were singing for our school, in the churches and stuff. We've been in, convent education. But why not inculcate this as a part of it and also attract children? You know how these reality shows have been attracting these children from all over the country, especially from very middle, sections of society. If we have diversity in music, and where we can have in these reality shows, if we can get children and have different kinds of music played along with their inter related diversities, it would make a very big impact, and music would go to another platform. And
I would agree with you there, that if we can make, we can inculcate some diversity in these shows, which is, I think, what people are also thinking about now, because since the TRPs are tapering downwards for many of the shows, they're now thinking of other ways of kind of, but I think that's still not a solution. I think what needs to be done is you have to start at home.
yes,
If you that's what used to be, uh, the truth in so many families in India. In Bengal, of course, every family there was a tabla and a harmonium and a tanpura. Every family had, but now every family has a guitar. So it's not that I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but at least let's have a guitar. Let's at least have some kind of music in the house. Let not the child only watch television and imbibe music. Then let us be more hands-on. If each family sends the child to learn somewhere, to have some honing of talent, there's always some basic talent in every child. Then 20 years later, maybe some of those kids or many of those kids might actually think of becoming professional musicians, because things are, as we discussed, things are improving. 30 years back when I started out, it was difficult. It was not easy, and there were very few people who were playing professionally, musicians. 30 years later, there are many more. There are many more who are. So that's a positive thing. I think if we look into our own homes and feed our children there with some music, it's going to work. Any other? Yes, please. Rana. Give him a mic, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. I would just like to ask if this shrinking space, as we have discussed here, is it the same as in the northern part of India and the southern part of India? We didn't have much of a discussion about the southern part of the music.
I'm gonna say, like, off the bat, that the north is worse and the south is probably better. But that's just on. I mean, I'm guessing.
I'm not certain because I haven't spent enough time really. I mean, the very fact that there's no data about all of this. I mean, nobody's thought of doing a study on this. Is whether it's in the north or in the south makes me just sort of talk from personal experience. But I think that in general, the lot of the artists, even in the south of India, is not terribly happy.
Yes, sir.
I wonder if you remember India about 70 odd years ago,
No.
when
Aatish does.
when the some of the Maharajas were among the greatest patrons of at least classical music.
Yes.
I'm sure you remember states like Baroda,
Yes.
Rampur, so many, Junagadh, even a small state like Maihar.
Of
Now,
course.
can we do something on those lines and get those people interested who have the resources, people who manage Infosys, Wipro, TCS, and of course Tata Steel is doing it already. Can we think on those lines and try and see if we can get some people to encourage.
I would say that many of them, please sit, sir. Many of them actually do a lot of sponsorship that comes
What do
in.
the Ambanis do culturally?
Shubhaji knows. You can answer.
Well, I think we're in a city where there is the ITC Sangeet Research Academy,
Exactly.
but I think really support has to be very carefully considered, and just to tell you, I mean, it's a bit of a joke, but some years ago, I was approached by a very eminent businessman who said, I would like to, Shubhaji, I'd like to put in some money to develop a gharana in the name of my family. Can
I
you
hope you said
ensure,
yes.
can you ensure that 10 years from now, I'll have a gharana in the name of my family?
wow.
And my jaw dropped to my ankles, and I just didn't know really what to say. But I think, it's not just about putting in money where your mouth is, but also believing in giving the space for artists to really work. There are no, I mean, for example, how do you assess, how do you evaluate whether the support that you have given has proved to be fruitful or not? I think all of these areas are really need to be discussed and thought out very carefully before we just start looking for money to, right now the situation is that people who put in money, they want branding. And they want branding in such a crass way that they would like to put their branding, if they were supporting a concert, they would like my bindi to be branded. And I've had this situation where a sponsor actually showed me an ad where my bindi had their branding. Yes.
Wow.
So that is the kind of indecent branding that, and the demands of branding that we are looking at. So I think it needs greater consideration than just finding the money bags.
Shubhaji, what about these portals like you have something like Kickstarter and all these? On the net you'll find many of these sites which actually garner people together.
You mean like crowdfunding?
Yeah, crowdfunding, whereby just for example, today, if all of you were to put in a little bit of money towards a project that is close to your heart, and you could have almost like a menu card in front of you of projects across the globe, and you could choose which one you want to fund. You have a little bit of extra money, you want to put your money there. That I think is kind of democratic on one level. I don't know whether that's going to really work in the long run, but I was interested to see that Pandit Ravi Shankar's last project, you probably know that, was well funded that way. So they actually got quite a bit of funding going, to the tune of 50 or 60,000 pounds, which came from that kind of funding. So that's another route which is being explored now. And I don't know where it's going to go, but at least it's happening. So there is hope. Next.
There's always hope.
Anybody else? Yes, please.
Well, I would like to go a little bit back on the discussion where we were talking about cultural denuding and mediocrity seeping in and excellence. There's a fear of excellence, so to say. I wanted to understand if, to a certain extent, even the shell that excellence maybe creates around it and the inaccessibility that it creates, which maybe mediocrity is able to, provide to an audience which might not be as, conversant with a particular form of art, but would definitely like to know more of. Does that also in some way, has it affected the way things have moved in our society, in the Indian cultural...
Aatish, you want to take that?
Tell me what do you think is at the heart of the question? What
I want to ask is, say for example, because I belong from the publishing side of it, there are certain barriers that maybe some of the writers in the new age, I would not like to name them, but like say Chetan Bhagat and Amish have broken with a larger audience, which maybe a lot of writers who belong to a certain genre or segment of, say, specifically literary writing, were not initially open to exploring.
See, I'll tell you what troubles me about that phenomena is that both Chetan and Amish, very important writers, because they're the first writers that really, like, India has thrown up on its own. Writers like me, right all the way back to Vikram Seth, to Salman Rushdie, to V.S. They've all come to India via the blessings of the West. So now the question arises, okay, fine, you have these one group of writers who come with the blessings of the West. Then you have a very low level of writers that India can throw up on its own. But can India throw up a literary writer on its own? I mean, are we to expect that this is all India can do autonomously? No more, nothing on the equivalent of Tagore, nothing, nothing, because certainly India in the past could throw up literary writers. So it seems like it's a kind of dangerous place to be culturally.
But it's the same with all the forms of art. If you look at music, if you look at film, if you look at writing, there is that phenomenon of you know, the middle order kind of, you know, people who are not tremendously talented but doing superbly well, which I think is there very much in music today as well. I mean, you find so many of the great singers who exist in this country who are pushed aside for somebody who's much less talented. That I don't know. I mean, that's
But do you
probably the way of the world at this point of time.
Do you think that excellence is also to a certain extent be blamed for it? Like, is it our vision or our own
I didn't understand. How
vision?
can you blame excellence?
Because I think there is a kind of shell that we create. I mean, there's a shell that maybe.
You mean the ego of excellence?
Yes, yeah.
All right. So
Do you think that is something that is also.
I could. I mean, I have seen examples of the ego of excellence kind of alienating people. That happens as well. You could actually. I've seen performers go on stage and not really care about the audience at all.
No, but
But
one minute,
that's-
one minute,
I don't
one
know,
minute.
I don't think-
We shouldn't. I mean, excellence is not some kind of ivory tower or something. It's and we can. You're right. It may, especially, and let's use a different word. Let's use if an artist is truly original, it may take some time for a public to come around to him. But when they do, it's not as if he remains the province of a few. He can become incredibly loved. You know, the role of Shakespeare, for instance, in the heart of English society and literature, is an example of 500 years where the writer has like really entered the soul of a culture, and you don't get more. There's, I mean, if we're talking about the inaccessibility of genius, it doesn't get worse than that. I mean, or more inaccessible than that.
Anish bhai, yes.
At the outset, Bickram, thanks so much for moderating such a wonderful, nuanced
Thank you.
discussion, throwing up so many